Meet you, everyone.
Hi, Zane.
Cool. So yeah, before we get into the demo, I think it's probably best to provide some context on what we're trying to do. And it's this idea of tagging papers. So there's already a way to segregate papers based on hubs, and eventually in the future, hopefully sub hubs as well. But the idea behind tags is topics that work laterally across these different hubs. So like between biology and chemistry, COVID is a great example. There might be papers that are both focused around the topic of COVID, and you want to see all papers related to COVID, you should be able to filter by some sort of tag. A lot of this, is still new to me and what I'm building. So I'd love your feedback as to what you expect out of tags and what you expect to look and feel like. But I have a rudimentary demo to show all of you guys. Can everyone see my screen?
Yeah, looking.
So the idea is, this is not final yet, but it'll look something like this. And the idea is when you click on one of these tags, it'll basically show you a list of all papers associated with that tag, right? So if I click fungicidal, it'll show me all papers relating to fungicidality, or however you pronounce that word. And you can filter through the same way you'd be able to now, like based on papers, posts, hypotheses, discussed, newest, top. That wouldn't change. And then in terms of actually using tags and setting them up, when you're uploading a paper or editing a paper, it works sort of how you'd expect, similar to Reddit or Stack Overflow, if you guys are familiar with that. You just edit the paper, you write the tag separated by commas, so like tag 1, tag 2, tag 3, and then you hit save. That's pretty much it. And what I'd like your feedback on, if you guys are open to it, what would you expect from tags in terms of whether it's a preset defined list that we set up for you guys, or is it something that you should be able to add yourselves? Because at the same time, we're trying to balance people with malicious intent on the website. So if someone comes on and starts putting profanity in tags, obviously we want to avoid that if possible. I'll stop here for a second if anyone has any questions.
Ricardo?
Yeah, so first of all, thank you very much. Like this is really cool, and actually will be really helpful before we implement sub hubs to sort of like find a way to like basically discriminate some papers that are within the same hub. So as for basically how to create a tag, like in which way we should be able to do it, I think it should be like at least at the first stage. It's probably better if like let's say within a specific hub there could be some discussion about like some, let's say, popular tags. Like for example, let's say people of the of a specific hub can like come together and like decide some tags that are, let's say, common within the field. Like that happens that happens a lot with like scientific journals. You normally like have within a journal specific tags that most people use. So that could be useful to, let's say, standardize the way in which people tag papers. Because if we give too much freedom, it will be actually difficult to locate specific papers according to tags. Because maybe just a little difference within tags will create, will be impossible to basically group together some papers.
The other option we're looking at and kind of touches on what you said is going back through all of the papers in the ResearchHub database and looking at the keywords associated with that paper and making that our set defined list of tags, right? So like sometimes in papers at the bottom, it'll show you that list of keywords, or just scrubbing the document, looking for which words appear the most, stuff like that. Would that make sense at all?
Yeah, that could definitely help. That could definitely help. I'm also working on a hub structuring, and like the one that passed in RIP one from the community. So given that there's a lot of like granularity in like sub hubs, there's like a lot of sub hubs. Something that I was thinking about is some of these hubs could actually be replaced by tags, because there's not like a lot of let's say activity on some hubs. Like some of them don't even have an editor, or there's no papers at all, but they could actually be really helpful as tags. So that could be also something to consider, like having like specific like categories that could be used as tags. Like let's say COVID is not so like popular in like 3-4 years, COVID could, shouldn't be a hub anymore because nobody will actually post in COVID, or like not a lot of papers. So it could become like an hashtag.
Right, right. That makes sense. And I guess before we get to the next question, I have one more for you, Ricardo. What do you think about the difference between tags and hubs, or do you see them as sort of one and the same?
So hubs should actually like reflect, let's say, a discipline or a sub-discipline. While tags, like I can make the example of my hub. Like my hub is biosensing, but actually biosensing and biosensors will work way better as tags than hubs because biosensors are multidisciplinary. So it's difficult to actually relate that to a discipline. It would be way better to identify that as an hashtag.
Right. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you.
Edwin?
Yeah, so I'm not sure if I caught this or not, but when the tags are being introduced, are the editors going to have, are they going to be introduced alongside papers?
I'll let Patrick take that one. I think right now the idea is yes, but I'm not sure if Patrick has different thoughts.
Well, in case, go ahead.
Just to jump in, did you say that they would be added alongside papers?
Well, that's all I was asking.
Yeah, so I think they could be added when you upload a paper, kind of like hubs are added. They could be tweaked after that. We still have to figure out exactly like the permissions for moderation, whether that's like the submitting user or the editors of the hub that it was added within. And then we also have the ability to essentially like over time refine a ML algorithm that would be able to automatically extract tags. I know there have been some projects for this before, like that will look through scientific papers and determine essentially like what discipline they fall into. So I think there's probably some stuff that we'd be able to build on top of in order to have like automatic tag recognition. Does that help to answer the question?
It does. What I was wondering about was just the malicious part of it, where people could just generate a bunch of tags that are not relevant to the purpose of the system. And if the editors have to, sign off on that before they affect the entire system, I would think that that would be a natural process. I'm not sure. I was just wondering if there's some other reason to think that may not be the case, but I was just wondering.
Yeah, it's a great point because it could definitely be way too time consuming for editors if they have to actually like monitor every single tag on every paper that's added. We could have the ability to like flag tags potentially, like if there's like one that people don't think is appropriate for the given paper. The design space is big here, so realistically, we'll probably release like a V1 and just see where it breaks because I'm sure it will break and there will be some malicious activity. And then once that happens, we'll probably iterate in order to like find a solution to whatever bad thing is occurring with the V1.
Any other comments on the matter? I saw Lynn had a hand back.
Oh yeah, no. My comments were kind of covered, honestly, but thank you.
Cool. Well, thanks for the feedback, guys. I do have one more question for everyone. What would you expect out of being able to search by tags? Would you want to be able to sub-filter by hubs? Would tags belong independently to hubs? So like, for example, if you're in computer science, would you want to be able to filter by tags within computer science? Or if you filter by a tag, do you expect all results to come and from all different hubs? Does that question make sense?
Anton?
Yeah, I think it definitely makes sense to like filter tags within the respective hub. Otherwise, there's probably some overlap between technical terms or something.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. Well, I think that's it for the tag stuff. I appreciate the feedback, everyone. Oh,
Maulik?
I think you're muted, Maulik.
Sorry. One quick question. I like the filtering idea too, but would it still, like, let's say the tag here was fungicidal, would it still give you like multiple papers from that filter, or?
Yeah, so I mean, it depends on the scope of the search, right? So like if you're only searching within computer science and there's only one tagged as fungicidal, it'll only return that paper. But if you're searching the entirety of ResearchHub for that tag, then any paper in any hub would be returned.
And so both options will be available.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Cool. Well, thank you, everybody, and thanks for presenting, Zane. This is like I remember Anton asking for this maybe like 18 months ago. This is like one of the original OG feature requests from the community, so I'm glad we're finally getting around to it.
Happy to help, guys.
That was a twofold request, actually. Tag-in, I guess, has a second meaning of tagging other users in the comments. Probably is unrelated in terms of how it's coded.
Yeah, unrelated, but that's also on the roadmap too.
All right, sounds good. All right, let's move on to the next topic. So we are working on revising the editor onboarding materials, or I guess for any active users, question mark. And so my question to you would be, if there would be a big place for all the relevant documents and guidelines and examples and such for, hub growth, for a moderation, for outreach, for the grant agreement and stuff like that, what would you like to see in that list, in that folder?
I think as just a little bit of context here, getting like a shared Notion where like on the help page right now, we kind of have like a home page for our Notion. We could add a category for like community, documents or community materials. And we just have a list of like essentially a running list of all of the like instruction guides or anything new users would need in order to like get onboarded onto ResearchHub and start to help build community.
Anton?
Yeah, maybe one question would be, why do we not do this in the ELN? Like, I thought in general, like maybe sharing the editor's material would be cool to do it within the ELN. I don't know how it's with the editing rights.
No, we can. Still, I haven't still considered finally what platform should it be on. I was thinking Notion, but could totally be ELN. When this first started, it wasn't the first iteration of the ELN, and the sharing options were limited, but we could if you want.
Yeah, I thought that would be pretty cool.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, it depends on what we have to share. Like now we know the ELN is kind of like limited in some terms, like of what we can actually put in the page, let's say. But if it's just like a couple images and text, I also think that the ELN is best to keep everything in ResearchHub. Yeah.
I think like one example where the ELN might not work well is Ricardo has been putting together like a pretty cool like a bounty Kanban board where in theory like we'd be able to like list a bunch of RSC bounties for doing community building activities. And so Notion has a little bit of infrastructure when it comes to just like regular project management stuff that our ELN doesn't really support. So yeah, like we can do stuff where we can put out like GitHub issues, have them import into Notion, have like bounties associated with them, and then pay them out kind of automatically. So we can do more than just documents in Notion, which is why it might be my preference at the time.
That's fair. Anton?
Yeah, maybe one more thing that would come to mind is how to use the referral links properly at large scale. I think that would be pretty helpful for editors when they start.
Like a referral guideline?
Mhm.
Okay. Any more requests?
White paper, if it's not already in the list, like have it already on the like that's kind of like.
I mean the updated one.
Yeah.
Patrick, do you know if there are any intentions to update the original white paper?
Yeah,
like
we need to go over the tokenomics today. And so this is updated as of like last Friday, and it's different than what's in the white paper. So yeah, there's a couple updates we need to make.
Also, maybe it can be a separate folder, but all the outreach material, pitch decks, one-pagers for like elevator pitch, tutorials for like Twitter posts and Reddit posts, LinkedIn posts, whatever. Yeah, that kind of things.
Good. Okay.
I guess if in the future anybody thinks of anything else that should be included in this, just DM me, Ricardo, or Anton, and we'll put the wheels in motion in order to get it drafted and throw it into the doc.
Yep. All right. Let's move on then. So a few users have suggested we talk about the revised visual layout of the homepage. What are your thoughts? We have used it for 3-4 days so far.
Is Thomas here? Thomas, do you want to screen share just to refresh everybody's memory?
Oh, okay.
I can do it if you're not.
Sure. Maybe you could do it.
Yeah. I'll do it. Okay.
Specifically, the person who submitted wanted to talk about the comment count and the hub list. I forgot who submitted originally.
Yeah, so just to kick off the conversation, one thing we've been thinking about recently on this homepage is like the different sections, like which ones provide the most value. Curious what everybody thinks of the trending hubs here. We're potentially considering replacing this with trending tags once Zane's feature is done, or maybe something different. So yeah, in addition to the changes that Thomas made, curious what everybody thinks about this section right here.
Lynn?
I mean, right now, none of the trending, at least for me, ever seems to update very frequently. So I always end up seeing the same stuff regardless. So I don't have any strong attachment to it right now.
Yeah, that makes no sense.
Ricardo, did you have a hand?
Oh yeah, the same. I was about to say the same. Like they're always the same. So yeah, I second that.
Yeah. Yeah, Nick. So you proposed we talk about the hub. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I appreciate us discussing this. Yeah. First off, I think the trending hubs part isn't for me. It also doesn't really change too often. But yeah, I mean, if I just had a few comments possibly about the new layout, if we wanted to. But if Patrick, you still wanted to talk about the trending hubs part, we could.
No, this sounds great. That's I think people confirmed what we were thinking. So yeah, would love to talk about the new layout.
Okay, cool. So I like the idea of having more info available. I just think maybe a couple tweaks. Just wanted to get your guys' thoughts. So when it lists what hub a poster is or a paper is posted in, I find that really useful because I can see, okay, if it's chemistry and biology and I like biochemistry, I'm like, okay, that might be good to see. So where right now it's collapsed where there's just one hub and then it says +2 or +1. There's a whole lot of real estate there. So I think maybe listing those out completely might be a little more useful as far as kind of showing that. And then possibly making the comments a little bit more easy to see that a paper does have a lot of comments, because before I did really like that blue bubble, but right now it's kind of it's a little difficult to see. You know, you could have two papers, one with 10 comments and one with none, and it wouldn't really leap off the page as a lot more activity on one versus the other. So just some thoughts on that.
Yeah, we've actually gone like that exact, like both of those points have been brought up before. So yeah, that's great feedback, and we'll definitely keep that in mind when we're doing like the next design iteration on it.
Okay, cool.
I'm curious what other prototypes you considered when you were talking about the list of the hubs, because one potential implication is that I have never before considered which hub I enter for the paper first, right? And they're kind of all equal in my head, but now it's really important, right? Because this is the only hub that's fully displayed, while all others are, plus more.
Yeah, that's true.
Do you think that's intended, or
this design was sort of intended just because we kind of keep this layout all the way to like 900-ish pixels. So like if you sort of make this window like a bit less wide, Like there's a point where it's like if you showed more than one hub, it would like really mess up the layout, like the layout.
Do you think it would make sense to supplement this decision then in the submission flow? So for example, maybe make it explicit for users that submit the primary hub and then submit the secondary hubs or something like that?
I think it's just like a little bit more work, but we can basically adjust it so that like it uses up like more of the white space pretty much. So like it's like a bit more work engineering wise, but we can sort of make it more dynamic there. So like it always shows as much as it can before collapsing.
Edwin?
I was wondering, are you guys working on how you decide what's trending or even what's showing up in the newer section? I'm not just something that's a problem for larger hubs, but in the law hub, for example, I just posted a paper, and if I clicked on newest, I wouldn't see my paper. I was just wondering if there's just with like how you guys figure out what's trending, what's not, etc. If that's something that's a problem for everyone, or if it's something that you guys are paying particular attention to, etc.
Yeah, so we actually, Kobe last week created a new hot score for the trending filter. We're like monitoring it right now. I think anybody can take a look if you want. I'll ping Kobe afterwards to get, it's like, you can add like a extension to this URL and be able to see from the new hot score. We're not like totally happy with it though, so we're going to tweak it a little bit this week and hopefully release it by the end of the week. But yeah, I've also noticed that newest is not the newest. And also like some of these filters don't work. Like if you go like top from this week or this month, they're not always right. So yeah, we definitely need to debug these new filters. I think these were added like halfway through last week. So yeah, there's probably going to be a little bit of iteration when it comes to making sure they're working properly. But Edwin, I will after the call find Kobe's URL that he has for the new hot score and send it to you to see if you think it's an improvement.
Okay, cool.
Other thoughts on the visual layout?
Something we kind of wanted everyone's opinion on. Right now, we're showing like the date that the paper was uploaded, but other sites like Reddit typically show sort of like how long ago the post was made. So like instead of saying like March 4th, it would say like, 1 day ago or something like that, 1 week ago. Wanted to get everyone's thoughts on if that's more useful information.
Yeah, I would
really
like
don't have
more.
a preference.
Go ahead. Nick?
This is just my opinion, but in this space, I think having the actual date it was posted is most useful to me, just because then it's kind of easier to know. Because when you're looking at papers, they all show the date that they were published and everything, so we're kind of already thinking in that way about it. So I mean, for me, I would vote the date showing is most helpful versus the other one.
Okay.
This might just be me too, Thomas, but I feel like these icons are a little bit extra and they feel like make it busier than it needs to be. Like if we move the paper icon up here back to where it was, I'm not sure if that was in our comments from Friday, but yeah, like this calendar icon and this like comments bubble. Not sure if anybody else feels the same way.
Yeah, we could try like a version without icons there for sure.
Ricardo?
Are we planning I don't know, maybe in the future to have a feature that differentiates between review papers and research papers, and have that an icon that can easily that users can easily discriminate between the two? No, it's not a big deal, but could be actually pretty useful.
I think long term that would be incredibly useful. Even just having like randomized controlled trial versus like retrospective cohort study or something like that. Like to have the type of study to allow you to filter by that. I know like PubMed and most academic search engines do that, so I could see it down the road being pretty useful. Yeah, and then even we got a comment on Twitter from the person who made the unofficial ResearchHub commercial, which was awesome, who wants us to filter by open access versus not open access papers too. So in theory, like if you wanted to consume the feed and only have open access like posts, so that way you'd be able to actually read the papers, you'd be able to do that without getting excited about a title and then clicking into it and realizing it's behind a paywall. So yeah, personally, I think that would be a great filter too, to be able to filter by the license type.
And that
I wonder if
yeah,
sorry, go
sorry.
ahead.
Yeah, go on.
I wonder if it makes sense to expand the idea with the tags to help with this. So for example, in addition to regular tags that users can add, you could have kind of like staple tags that are mutually exclusive, right? So you can submit a paper and you can select one of three tags. It's either an empirical paper or not free, maybe a secondary analysis, review, meta-analysis. So instead of creating a category in the filter, they would kind of be created somewhere on the back end instead. And so you could have different tags similar to that are also mutually exclusive. Something like if it's open access status, it could be, open access, non-open access, could be, pre-registered, registered report, no pre-registration or something like that,
Yeah, totally. So I think the way the tags are being built, this could be done. So we can definitely experiment with it and see like kind of how it works and if we find it useful. I know one thing which is hard is like some of the metadata around papers are not perfect. So trying to extract the license type, only some papers actually have that included in the metadata. So we'd have to do some like manual tagging and then have some kind of like quality control on that tagging. I know for like actual papers themselves too, sometimes they have in the metadata like what type of paper it is, whether it's a RCT or like case study or something like that. So yeah, we'll probably have to. I think in general there seems to be a lot of value within like creating RC bounties for mechanical Turk style work, where you don't necessarily have to be an expert academic, but you can come in and say, yeah, this is definitely a randomized control tile. I'll add the tag, get my RC, move on to the next paper. So we'll probably explore that at some point over the next 6 months or so. But yeah, so long-winded answer of we can definitely take the tagging feature that Zane's building and kind of apply it in many different directions. And if it seems useful, if people are doing it manually, it seems useful, build some tooling around it to make it a little bit more automated.
This seems like a great idea. Also, because again, thinking about the competitors, like if you look at Science Direct, they have that kind of feature where you can discriminate between review and research articles, but it's not great. Like some articles are tagged as reviews, but they're actually research articles. So in this way, like a community powered kind of like let's say quality control, I think could be really, really useful in the future. So yeah.
Yeah, we've talked about this a little bit before, and this could be like a kind of long-term goal, but having like a database of accurate metadata, because I know like when you upload papers to Mendeley or something like that, it doesn't always pull like the author information or like the funding information. Like if we could create a database that has all of that, yeah, I think it'd be really useful to a lot of people. So it'd be cool to be able to use the token to leverage like anyone out there who wants to help to do some of that manual labor. Cool. Yeah. Does anybody else have any thoughts?
Yeah, sorry, I'm always talking, but I just wanted to ask you something about the hubs. Like the hubs main page. I wanted to ask you, what do you think is the added value of that little description? Because in most cases, it's really like not that indicative of the field and could actually be kind of like misleading. So I'm kind of like wondering. I was wondering what is the added value of having that. It could also like help like condensing the little like the figures of the hubs. So yeah.
It's a great question. So I don't think we haven't put a lot of like critical design thinking into like our hubs page since Thomas built that for his work trial. I like the descriptions like when you click into a hub, how it's like on the home page you have like immunology and then members and then the editors and like a description. But I think you're right that in like the hubs homepage itself, um, they aren't totally necessary, and most people like kind of know what oncology is. I'm not sure if like the study of cancer is 100% necessary to help draw in a new person. So yeah, it's a great point, and we could probably save some real estate there and include more hubs like above the fold on the hubs page.
All right, let's move on. Patrick, are you okay with presenting the tokenomics update?
Yeah, definitely. Sorry, I gotta let my dog outside really quick. She's whining, so just give me 1 second.
Sure.
Okay, cool. I'm back. Yeah, so let me pull this up and present this. So this is basically like an overview of ResearchHub's tokenomics that was published over the weekend. This is something that we've been kind of like playing around with for like 6 months or so. So it's a little bit different than what's in the white paper. So just wanted to kind of like quickly overview it with everyone and help to answer any like thoughts, questions about it. Brian on Friday actually like published a personal blog disclosing his involvement in ResearchHub and linked this because we just finalized it over the weekend. So yeah, this is kind of like the tokenomics overview that helped to explain sort of like the economy, supply demand that'll come out of Research Coin. The idea is we're starting with 1 billion total tokens. About 3% of the supply is circulating right now. So that's like in people's Ethereum wallets or in their ResearchHub app accounts. It's actually slightly higher than this, but it's near 3%. We plan to add 5% of RC per year to be distributed either through rewards on the app or for performing services for the community. For instance, like completing bounties to post papers on Twitter or something like that. Here's the smart contract address. If anybody wants to go on Etherscan, look it up. This is stuff everybody knows here, just overviews of ResearchHub and ResearchCoin. And so this is the important information here. These are the 3 buckets that the initial 1 billion tokens are divvied up into. And kind of the thought process here is a lot of DAOs kind of exist in this sort of like flat democratic structure where people like earn tokens and then like have a higher standing in the community. And so these are like really powerful models, at least in our estimation, for things like funding grants or like investing. So getting a bunch of people together, like pooling capital and making like simple decisions around how that capital is allocated. But in general, we think that like DAOs are not great like decision-making structures for building products. In general, Brian's a huge fan of like founder-led companies. If you look at like the stock market, like a lot of the biggest tech companies that have been able to be successful still have like initial founders essentially as CEOs or controlling the board. And sometimes like when investment money can overtake like a founder's controlling share, the company doesn't do as well long term because a lot of decisions are made basically like to maximize profits and not necessarily to accomplish a mission that a founder started. So with that like concept of founder-led companies, the way that we're thinking about this is the initial supply is divvied up into 3 buckets: 60% for the founding team, 20% for the community and users of ResearchHub, and then 20% for future employees of ResearchHub technologies to help us hire to essentially like build out the ecosystem. This is kind of like a standard Silicon Valley type of distribution for like a equity raise. So in theory, like if you go do like Y Combinator, like the founders start out with 100%. They give 7% to Y Combinator, then they do a seed round where they normally distribute about like 20%, and then Series A where they distribute about 20%. And so Brian's thinking of ResearchHub in a similar fashion, except we'll never need to raise money. And instead of raising money, essentially what we'll do is dilute these buckets by minting new tokens to distribute to the community and future employees of ResearchHub. So at 5% per year being distributed basically to users via the app and performing services for the community, this pool will run out in about 4 years, at which point we'll host a community vote in order to mint new tokens. And so the way that we see this working like into the future is essentially whenever any of these buckets run out, we'll hold a vote to mint new tokens, replenish it for a like predetermined period of time. And then, it gives us flexibility to essentially like make decisions on the fly as a community to make sure like each one of these buckets are like appropriately funded with Research Coin. And then one other thing is in the future, like we may say it would be nice if there was a certain bucket for like funding projects on ResearchHub, and maybe we want to have like votes to help like determine how this capital is allocated if we decide to make a pool for funding different projects. And at that point, it would be the same procedure. Like there'd be a community vote where we'd say, hey, we want a new bucket outside of these three. Here's what it's for. Here's how many tokens we want to allocate to it or mint new tokens to put into it. And here's like essentially like how long it will last. So lots of information here. Does anybody have any thoughts or questions about how these tokenomics are kind of like laid out initially, and then also kind of like our plan long term of diluting all of these shares by minting new tokens to either like distribute for the community or future employees? I can't see anybody. Any thoughts? Okay, cool. Yeah, if nobody has any thoughts, no big deal. So another thing that we kind of decided on Friday too is for community voting, we plan to have a board seat for ResearchHub Inc. that's essentially voted on by the community and has regular terms. So that'll either be like quarterly or yearly or something like that, where somebody, whoever is like nominated by the community, can be voted to hold a board seat in ResearchHub Inc., like attend our board meetings, help to like kind of like set direction for the project. And so that board seat will be determined by community voting, probably without Brian and I voting within it or anybody from the ResearchHub team. So that's also like a added addition to help like the community essentially like have like a governing say over how ResearchHub Technologies Inc. operates in the future. Yeah, Malik?
Sorry, going back to the tokenomics part, a quick question. Like a couple of friends have asked if they want to get research going right now. Is there any other way except over the counter, like through the Uniswap, that you foresee that happening soon? Or
I think like the number one way we want people to earn research coin is by contributing to the community. So like either being an editor or like completing bounties. I know like for instance, Jeff has a friend who is like he manages social media for a couple of like big companies. And so Jeff introduced me to him on Sunday, and this person, has like a lot of value they could potentially bring to ResearchHub. So he's going to chip in, kind of like very part-time in order to help us organize kind of our social media outreach. And so that person will end up earning some coins for that effort because it's like incredibly valuable to us at the moment. So yeah, I think I think in the future there probably will be ways that people can exchange financial value for research coin, but right now the most important one is actually contributing to the community. So posting papers, being an editor, or like doing other kind of business operations oriented tasks. And if you know anybody who's interested in that, like I'd be happy to chat with them and kind of like see if there are any good fits. So yeah, definitely if you know anybody, DM me and happy to jump on a call to see like where it might make sense.
thanks.
Yeah, definitely. Any other thoughts here before we move on? Cool.
It's
Yeah,
a lot of information, so we'll probably think more about it. I wonder, do you think is there any lower and upper limits on how many tokens will be minted? And what if community goes crazy, all of us, and like, we want to mint 50 billion for the next quarter? Would there be some boundaries there?
Yeah, so that's why the team allocation is so high at the beginning. Is it allows essentially like the ResearchHub team to help put guardrails on this process. And so yeah, essentially like for the first probably like 4 or 5 years when it comes to minting new tokens, like Brian and I's share of voting will probably likely be able to unilaterally, like with our 2 votes combined, make decisions. But the idea here is like over the course of like 10 to 20 years, this power ends up becoming diluted. And we kind of anticipate basically being able to set a culture where like once you're 10 years into a project, most of the people who hold the most tokens have long-term, thinking. And it wouldn't make sense to just like mint a bunch of tokens, put them all in my wallet and destroy the value of like the economy. So those things are bigger risks at the early stages of a project, which is why we kind of have this like founder controlled mentality, which will eventually be diluted over time.
Being RSC starting as a fixed supply, do you see any risk in making it like inflationary with this, possibility to mint new tokens after basically the two buckets for community and future employees basically are become empty?
So to repeat that back, are you saying like risks in general, or do you think like there's a
Yeah,
risk?
potential drawbacks of having that not fixed anymore. Because once it's fixed, like the community knows that there's a certain amount, but like now you're basically saying that actually, like many more tokens can be minted. So is that gonna change anything? Like just like wondering if you think that there's something that can actually, yeah.
So
Yeah, I
so
don't
I think like from a purely like if I were to speculate perspective, actually 2 thought processes here. The first is like fixed supply is good because then like more supply won't come onto the marketplace and reduce the price without changing demand, right? Just that curve. So like first level thought is fixed supply is good. Second level thought is like if you're speculating over the long-term value of the project, like you want the project to be able to succeed. And so a lot of times, like I think crypto projects sort of do a lot of planning in an a priori fashion, where it's just really difficult to get stuff right. Like it's going to be like the legal situation around all this stuff is going to be wildly different in 4 years by the time we actually mint new tokens. And so it's just extremely difficult to predict like the best way to handle these type of like big picture economic decisions. So the nice part about this is it gives us a little bit of flexibility. So essentially we're able to like make decisions on the fly with up-to-date information. And so like personally, I think that this is like a much safer way of kind of doing things than having a fixed supply. Especially, and I'm biased, right? Because I trust me and I trust Brian. But especially with like having some kind of like I've been working on a project like this for like 5 years. So like I'm here for the long term and Brian's here for the long term. And like having like long-term thinking make those decisions initially, I think is almost safer than trying to like predict what the world's going to look like in 5, 10, 15 years. So yeah, we think this is the ability to essentially stay on our toes a little bit better. And like it doesn't necessarily preclude the possibility of in the future, once we have like a pretty good understanding of what's working and what's not working, creating something more like set in stone and written code. Like I know some projects have like inflation schedules that are essentially guaranteed. And so this is like that. It just gives us the ability to pivot. For instance, like we have 20% in the employee pool. It's unclear how long that would last. Like if we like get a bajillion users in the next 2 months and we have to like build out our engineering team and hire 100 engineers over the next 6 months, like it'll probably get depleted quicker than if things maybe take a little longer. So yeah, not allowing us to decide when to mint gives us like a ton of flexibility in order to make the best decisions in the moment.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Patrick. That was basically it. Yeah. It was more like a kind of like wanted to be safe, like having more coins on the market, like mostly on the market, like people that just want to speculate and is not really invested in the long term. So having more coins out, maybe just like includes more risks. But yeah, I totally I totally mirror your perspective actually on this. Having more flexibility for a project like this is really important to be able to pivot in the future. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, cool. If anybody has any thoughts in the future, happy to chat about this on a call because I think getting the stuff and even like the messaging around it is pretty important. So yeah, definitely like pretty interested to hear what people think. So feel free to DM me and like would be glad to jump on a call and talk about it.
Shall we talk about the sign-in options in the time remaining?
Yeah, that sounds great. So this is another, I think, like community requested feature that has been around for a while is people don't love having Google sign-in be the only option. We've done this for basically like convenience purposes. It's like really low weight engineering wise and allows us to not have to do any security around like managing people's personal information, like their passwords and email addresses and stuff. Google's in a better position to do it than us. But we're at the point where we think it makes sense to start to open this up a little bit. So we're going to, and I think like part of this is brought about because some people have tried to like use ResearchHub to like share new papers and stuff, and they're unable to log in or unable to sign up. And so that's like a pretty big blocker at the top of the funnel when it comes to like increasing our North Star metric of weekly active contributors. So yeah, we want to make sure that anybody who wants to be able to contribute to ResearchHub isn't getting blocked by like a technical difficulty. So what we plan to do is essentially like a lot of people who are tech savvy, they disable third-party cookies like within their browser. You're unable to sign into ResearchHub currently if your third-party cookies are disabled. And so we're tweaking the Google sign-in so that way that will not become necessary. So if you're in incognito mode or something like that, like you can still sign in to ResearchHub, or if you have like ad blockers, like really powerful ones. And then in addition to that, like we also want to have another type of sign-in. So some things that other people use are like Twitter or GitHub or Orchid is like a science-specific one. Or there's been like projects that are doing sign-in with Ethereum wallets. So like you'd be able to just sign in with your like MetaMask, and then you'd have a user account associated with whatever your like wallet's like string of characters is. So yeah, does anybody have any requests when it comes to like different logins that in theory would help to make it easier for new people who come to ResearchHub, making sure that anybody who wants to post will be able to? I guess like a specific pointed question here is, would anyone sign in with Ethereum wallets if that was an option? Is that interesting to people here whatsoever?
Yeah, I would.
I think some people would prefer that. That would allow like anonymous comments as well. And I think as we look into this, I think we had discussed this at one of the previous community calls. Is if let's say the community grows really big, and there are some like, I don't know, for the lack of word, like gods in the field who are like 200 papers and they have posted something and somebody is like afraid of commenting, then it would give them the confidence of having the anonymous comment and still get both knowledge as well as like whatever contribution they get in research point from that. So yeah, I like the idea of signing through the wallet. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great point. We've even thought about anonymous commenting being something where, like, if you hold enough research coin in your wallet, then that unlocks. So the idea being, like, if you're new to ResearchHub, then you have to say who you are. But if you've kind of demonstrated that you're, interested in like maintaining quality and contributing quality, then we can trust you with anonymity to be able to criticize others in a productive fashion.
Yeah, I'm like all messed up.
Cool. So I guess when it comes to like outside of Google, like log in with Facebook. Anybody want that? Is that I'm joking? So Twitter, GitHub, Orchid, any other ones that we should potentially consider, or is this not even like a big deal to anybody here? Like, is everybody happy with the Google sign-in?
Scott mentioned Twitter.
Yeah, Twitter's a good one. Twitter's definitely an option. I'm not sure. One thing is like, I don't know if like every academic has Twitter. Like same thing with Orchid though. So we're gonna run into issues no matter what here, unless we just want to do like a bespoke sign-in where you can do your own email address and password.
Wouldn't that introduce like whatever service you would like to tie as a sign-in system to ResearchHub? That potentially could be the weakest link, right? Because you could hold actual funds in ResearchHub. Then let's say, I don't know how good the protection of Orchid is, but what if it's easier to hack compared to, I don't know, a Twitter or Google sign-in? Wouldn't that just introduce more problems?
Yeah, totally. So we have stuff we can do to protect it. Like if you logged in with Twitter recently, like we can put like delays on withdrawing where you have to confirm from your previous email that this is you withdrawing or something like that. Like there are things we can do to help mitigate that risk. But yeah, I mean, it's a great point. I think you're right that Orchid probably isn't the most well developed when it comes to like security. So that would make a ton of sense. I'm sure something like GitHub or Twitter, they have much bigger budgets when it comes to like actually protecting login info. So yeah, totally. It's a great point. Ethereum should solve that though, because to sign in with Ethereum, you're the only person with your private key. So that's a nice little added benefit. But then also a lot of scientists don't have Ethereum wallets. So we'd have to help them spin something up easily if they wanted to. Cool. Yeah, does anybody have any other thoughts here? I think that's all we have, Anton, right? Any other topics?
Nope, that's it for now.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so a couple of other random administrative notes. So we're going to be hosting an AMA with another DeSci project founder who wrote a paper about like DeSci and science and how blockchain can help. It was a preprint. I posted it late last week. So we'll try and get like a bunch of comments on this paper and then like share it around the internet, and the authors are going to come in and do an interview. And so we'll be able to essentially like do like a live YouTube with all the authors answering the questions that are listed like in the forum, and then also anything that pops up live. So that'll be exciting. And then we also have like some marketing stuff coming up. So Wafa and Ricardo are going to be like holding some meetings on like how to essentially like post to Reddit and like post to Facebook groups to help do some of this stuff. And for the first AMA, I'll be doing the whole process live. So essentially, like, I'll share how I recruited these people. Once we have like a date and time set, how I shared around to different like online communities in order to get attendees, that kind of thing. So we'll be hosting basically like half-hour calls, a couple over the next few weeks, in order to anybody who's interested can show up and kind of like learn how to host these sort of events on your own. Cool. Well, thanks everybody for coming. And yeah, thanks for sharing such good feedback for Zane. Excited for him to potentially start joining the team. So yeah, thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you all next week.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.